Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 67th episode of the HSBG Podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins. I'm here with my constant co-host, Shady Buddy. Shady, how you doing?
I'm doing great, Collins. How are you doing today?
I'm good, I guess. Clean my room. Copium. I don't know. I am doing
That's
all
good.
right.
That's good.
Um, So we don't have like a super crazy long episode today because there isn't too much that has changed since last week. We do have the Lobby Legends like completion of the month to talk about and just kind of our experience through that. And then we just have like some meta discussion. So this might not be like a super long one, which is fine. You know, you don't need to have crazy long ones every single week, but should still be fun nevertheless. We always start off with Shady moving out of focus and coming back into focus. But after
Yeah.
that, we do have our weekly overview. So just kind of our games for the week or our thoughts for the week overview. So this is like the week after the patch or so where they've removed Grease Spot, they've added Chroma Wing, they've added Togwaggle and just kind of that meta. Um, Obviously, we're going to talk about the meta overall. But my experience, it's been fine. Not bad or anything. You know, there's been some days where I dip, but it's not due to like the meta. It's just due to like bad RNG, which can happen in every meta. Like you're losing 20%ers to die, or things like that. Like that happens, you know, every week basically, right? You're gonna have a 20% where you lose it, and then that's for lethal, and then there goes like 100 MMR, and you have to climb it back. But overall, like you know, besides those like couple of moments, it's been fine for me. I haven't had too many issues. The meta is okay, so uh, you know, obviously there are things that could be improved, but overall, I'm having a decent go at it. How about you, Shady?
It's been great for me. Like I kind of had a slow start to the last few metas, I guess,
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of just like struggling where I was below 12K not too long ago, where I was kind of just hovering the whole time, right? Where like 11.8 or whatever, and just trying to get there. But I was over 1300 after the qualifying period, and then today I pushed to 14K. I said 1300, but 13K, right? So I was 13.3 after the qualifiers and or after the ladder ended,
Yeah.
and then 14K now. So it's been just some, yeah, just some, like things click, and all of a sudden you're just like, okay, I'm no longer getting the top eights where I was getting them before, and I'm getting more top ones. So the climbing was just pretty crazy, the difference that happens when you really start understanding the meta. And
You think it
that's
has
cool.
anything to do with like grease spot removal and like not having to force that kind of composition? Because we had grease spot for like a month, right? So
That's
uh,
true. Yeah.
there
The
might like because
yeah.
I do think like grease spot was like too simple or like too easy for
Yeah.
non-skilled players to just like, oh, I got a grease spot. Oh, now I'm as good as you guys. Like I, you know, I'm winning the matches now. I'm just as good as everyone in the leaders ladder. And then you take that like crutch away, and they're just like, oh, what do I do now? Like obviously there's still
Yeah.
like broken mechanics, like you know that people are still utilizing, but it's not as like clear. I would say, and it requires some level of skill to be like, oh, how do I do the crowbar
Yeah.
thing, right? Because like every
Like, how do
time,
I create a gem stack of
yeah,
200, 200, right?
yeah.
To get to that point, you need to play well.
Yes. So it
No,
might
yeah.
not just be like, oh, I'm seeing the Matrix. It just might be like, oh, there's, you know, there's less like free things that people can do. So now my skill is like more showcased
I
in the
that's
meta.
that's very likely going to play a part in it.
Yeah.
For yeah. I think that patches in general do just help the really experienced players, right? Because you can have some players
Depends
that
on the
are
patch.
sorry.
Depends on the patch, you know.
Well, that's why I say generally, right? So generally, whenever there's a change in the meta, if you understand the game and you know what makes a strong board and you know kind of what makes sense, right? The things that make sense, strong players are going to intuitively pick that up and kind of run away with it and do well. I feel like it's more likely that less experienced players, they're going to rely a little bit more on just patterns and, okay, I do this and then I do that. I say that because that's the evolution I see in myself. So maybe that's not true for other players, but I definitely see myself relying more on patterns and strategies. And then as I get more comfortable with a meta, as I get better at it, it becomes a lot more fluid. And it's just like, oh, this makes sense and that makes sense. And this is strong and that is not strong. And this is a level and that is not a level and stuff. And those things, they're a lot less clear if you rely more
You
on.
know, I'm like the exact opposite. I'm very fluid at the beginning, and then I learn the patterns.
Right. Yeah, you might be a little bit too fluid at the start.
Yeah.
Which is funny,
and then I'm like, oh wait, this is actually good. Let me just, so it's actually the opposite for me. How I learned, where at first, like, new patch, I'm just trying everything, and then like someone beats me with something, I'm like, let me do that, and then I get that like pattern of like, oh, this is actually playable, and then it's actually the opposite for me. It's interesting.
It's almost like it's OP where you're doing fine without it, and then somebody shows you like, oh, this is a free win. Like, oh, I can pick up another free win.
Yeah, that's very true.
Like,
right? I just get free win techniques. Like
exactly. Like I think a good one is when you learn like, oh, when I have a Buster, a Baron, I just need to pick up like Kangor and the blaster, and I blow up my opponent's board and summon a bunch of Mega Busters, right? And you weren't doing that before, and it's like somebody shows you,
don't
like,
do that.
Oh, you win, right?
It's still niche. That's still a niche thing for me.
It's still pretty free.
It is free, but it's
yeah, or something stupid like, hey, you can play Ysera, you can stay on tier 1 and farm Karma Wings. Like, oh, no, I picked up a free win technique.
I literally was like, when the patch came out, I played Ysera and I was like, tried, and I played it and I didn't do super well, and I was like, it felt good, like, but I didn't do that well. And then like a week later, everyone's like, Ysera's OP, and I was like, I played Ysera like the first day, Karma came out, because I was like, maybe it's okay. I had no idea, and now it's like, oh, it's OP. So it's just like you learn things, and then like, oh, the pattern of Ysera, now I know it, so. But before I was just like trying Ysera blindly because I was like, oh, maybe Chrome Wing's okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of interesting. I also want to say for the you said that patches help the better players. I still think it depends on the patch, because I would agree with your statement for like the first week, maybe the first week and a half. But I think like once 2 weeks, 3 weeks pass, like if the patch isn't super balanced or so, like it just helps the every like it can help everyone
like
as well.
Naga, for instance, where it's like it can't do that much. Well, I mean, it depends, right? Because like
it depends on the patch. Once like I was saying, but like it's not. Yeah,
I think it also depends how willing you are to just exploit things, because like when Nagas were doing really well, like you could really, really farm people just using Sephins, but you kind of have to.
But I'm saying it equalizes. If the patch isn't like super balanced, like Grease Spot, everyone can do Grease Spot, and it doesn't matter. You can't outskill the Grease Spot.
Yeah, but with Nagas was not a balanced patch, right?
Sure.
But Nagas had this glaring weakness of you could poison scam them like no other, right? You could really.
Yes, but now we're going into like a level above. I'm saying like. The patches don't necessarily always help the better players.
Yeah, but that's why I use the word generally as well, right? Like just generally, if there's a change, I feel like it's going to benefit stronger players. And I think I guess what it comes down to is you're saying that if it's not a balanced patch, it equalizes it more. And I would say if it's not a balanced patch where there isn't necessarily a counter to the imbalanced thing. Because I think if you're willing to counter the imbalanced thing, I think that in its own might point out that it's maybe not that imbalanced. But I think we'd be, very cautious to say that Naga.
But once you go into the counter of the unbalanced, there's not that many people that will get to that point.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. The good players will.
Right? But that's even a level above good players. You know, you're going into like exceptional players that will understand the meta and then the counter to the counter
I
meta.
thought we were talking about exceptional players. Then,
No. I'm talking about
talking like 8K and above or something or what?
Well, you know, maybe like 10K or so, but like it's not necessarily that unbalancing the great players, they'll figure it out, you know, like for a while everyone's gonna suffer because it takes a while to figure out the counter to the
and sometimes there isn't like a clearly great counter because we have Grease Spot and there was Blaster, and then you kill the Grease Spot shields and the Necros and the Deflectos have it back.
Yeah, and sometimes the problem with counters is like it takes too long to set up. Like you can't like the issue with counters sometimes is if you try to counter the counter, you die to everything else. That's not so. Even when you're doing the counter, you're like, it still kills me, so I can't really force
I'd say that's part of the skill of kind of timing it right. Like, transitioning your board at the right time versus the right
That's what I'm talking about, exceptional players.
Yeah. But that's why it's so hard to just tell people like, oh, just go 7 or just go Pirate Scam and stuff. Because I was thinking about it the other day, like when you're playing Pirate Exodia, that comp is actually so hard to set up because you need to hold the Khadgar until the right time, and you're going to have this random gold grubber on your board, and that's going to be better than a Khadgar for a long time, and you're going to want to play 7 minions for a long time, and maybe the whole time, and there's so many exceptions and little things, and do you go to 6 for Uther, etc. So yeah, it's crazy how different the game becomes when you can just tell an exceptional player like do this, and they'll probably get there. But you can't just tell a normal like average player like, oh, just do this, because you're probably going to die before you get to that board that I want you to get to. All right. Anyways, I feel like we are digressing here, but
we have like 4 topics, Shady. Digress
all right, more digression. So where can we jump to from this point on?
We can move on. We can move on.
Okay.
But yeah, next topic we do have is we did have the Lobby Legends finals, not finals, but like the Lobby Legends qualifying period over. It's the end of the month, and that's usually when the Lobby Legends periods for qualifying are over. So I played in NA, and then Shady played in EU, and I think we both had like semi-different experiences, even though we were kind of rooting for each other. At least I was rooting for Shady as we were doing it, but
always rooting for Collins, of course.
Yeah, so
I remember when I watched the first Lobby Legends, man, I was like, when you like dunked that lobby, I was like, yeah! I was just screaming at my PC. It was so good. Yeah. Sorry, I interrupted you. Go ahead.
But at least for me, I've had this issue, quote unquote, where almost every time, like 4 days, 5 days, like a week before the qualifying period ends, I'm usually like super high rated, and then I have this like one bad day, and then it puts me into like, I would say Monka S territory, where if I do nothing from that bad day, there's a decent chance people could just be like, this guy is very beatable, let's just all jump over him. Then you get kicked out. So it basically encourages me, or like, not forces, but it just heavily encourages me to keep playing, to keep pushing, to get back to the point before I played, basically. Like so many months I've been like, I just need to get back before that one day I played. Like that's like my goal. Just get back to where I started. Like that's and this has happened like 2, 3, 4. It's only been 4, but like 3 times already. So I keep like during the end of the month now, I'm like thinking to myself, I don't want to do that because it just like unnecessary stress. I don't need it. Like, why put myself in those positions? Like, there is some benefit of like you get to play in a very serious. I would say the end of the month is very serious in terms of like people try, and you don't see levers or anything, and everyone's trying to kill you, and there's a lot of like good games there. I would say like maybe the last day or like nearing the last day is kind of not as serious, or maybe not as hard, because all the qualifiers have stopped playing. They've all like, I'm good, so I'm not gonna play more, right? So maybe like the last day you have um, less of you're not seeing Waterloo or something like they're not playing at those days essentially, or they're playing on like a different account. Um, but generally, you have a lot of good games there, and it's a lot. It can be harder because there aren't people like just losing. Everyone's trying to win the game. So, at least in the lobbies I'm in, so you get good practice, I would say, during that time. Though you don't have to, but you don't have to do it on like your main account. That's you can play on a different account, right? Like so, it's not
Yeah.
necessarily the best
Like,
reason.
you're trying to find a silver lining here for having to play.
I'm like, why do I do this every month? Um, but this month, I was pretty high rated. I haven't had that much issue, and I just kept reminding myself, "Hey, just don't play. Like, just don't though. Like, don't play." But I still couldn't like do that really. So I'd play like one or two or three games off stream like almost every day. Like even regardless, just to because I didn't like the feeling of like just not playing for like a week, like oh like it just felt wrong. So I'd still like just play, but I played off stream, so it wasn't like it was pretty chill. There was no sniper, so you really couldn't get like ruined, because like I do think people will sometimes try to screw you over like during the end of the month if they want, because like it's not like they're trying to screw you over, but it's like they want to take every advantage they can during the end of the month, so they'll just like check who's streaming or who's in my lobbies, and then they'll just watch you.
Let me
And
just
it's not
say.
like malicious, but they're I don't like that personally. Like I like when people come after streams like, oh, I beat you, haha, like not haha, but like GG, I beat you. Like it's like leave me alone.
Smiley face. Like, I finally, like it was so nice to beat you, smiley face.
Yeah,
Like,
like
yeah.
I'm not the biggest fan of that. Um, so I just had some chill games and didn't play too much during the final week, just a couple games, but um, basically just kept my spot, so I didn't have to struggle this month. Finally, I just didn't play. Like it's so simple, right? Like I just don't
Just don't
play. Uh, but yeah, I mean, I just didn't play it. I just kept my like top 5 spot. Like it's that easy. If you just have to do well before the last week essentially, and then you can like coast. But that was my experience. But I still fun, to watch other people play and suffer.
Yeah, it was. We talked about it on the previous edition where it was going to be a pretty pretty fun end of the month for EU, and it sure was. It was a cool, lot of people playing, and some surprises as well at the end there. So I was gonna say, like, when you said like, "Oh yeah, I didn't play Easy Qualify," I was gonna say, "Yeah, same for me, Collins.
And
Just no
same for
play."
you. Yeah, I
Yeah,
watched you.
this is as usual. No, for me it was. I don't want to say unfortunately, right, but it was just not the same experience. I started. Honestly, I started outside of the top 16 not very long before the last few days. So I don't actually even remember which day I entered the top 16, but it might have only been like 1 or 2 days in advance.
Yeah,
So very,
something like
very
that.
close. Or was just pushing from the second page. I think at some point, I think I was like very, very near the top of the second page, right? So basically borderline bottom first page.
Uh-huh.
And then just playing well, staying focused, and I think most importantly, being okay if I make a mistake or whatever, not immediately just being like, like I can't play. My brain's obviously not working. Just be like, relax. You know how to play. Made a mistake. It happens. So, yeah, this was very, very cool to then say like, oh, this is possible. And then I got to this month was different because Oliek had 2 accounts in the top 16 for a while.
Uh-huh.
So that meant that the top 18 would qualify because Advo was also not eligible. And obviously you can't qualify on 2 accounts, so that would free up 2 spaces. But then Oliek, I think, lost like 500 or more or something in one day where he was just playing on a second account.
I
And,
know that life.
Yeah, I don't know if it was this like it's my second one. I don't care. I'm just gonna. Well, he didn't like throw it away, right? But sometimes he's like, oh, I'll just keep queuing, right? And whatever. So suddenly it's the top 17. It's no longer the top 18. So you might want to reach out, by the way, and address that. I think somebody found your Easter egg and is afraid that wasn't supposed to be. But whatever. we um, we played on
No,
stream.
it's fine.
Or
Yeah, it's fine.
yeah,
Like
yeah,
I'm giving it to whoever take it. Good,
yeah.
congratulations. Take
There
it.
you go. So the last day of the qualifier, or of the I say qualifier, but we just mean like the ladder period, right? The last day of the month. The last day of the month, I streamed for like 7 hours or so, just pushing. And my first few hours are always so good, and then after that, I'm doing okay, right? But Collins, you were watching, and it's like, yeah, you're getting some thirds, you're getting some fourths, but that's not going to cut it, right? Like if you have a good enough game, you got to take the first, you got to take the second, you got to get those points. Like thirds and fourths, they don't mean anything, right? It's minimal losses, minimal gains. That's what's happening there. And then if you continue playing in that state, you're going to hit a bad game at some point. And then, it's like +5, -3, +10, -140.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh shit, right? So I called it and I said, okay, I'm gonna just chill. My first 3 hours were good. I put myself to, I think I was very close. Like, let's say, I want to say like 19th or so, right? So I was 19th. I need to be top 17. Um, so I went to, like my in-laws were actually having a barbecue that day. So I was like, all right, I'll chill, just go to the barbecue, have some food, relax, clear my head, then come back, and then in the evening fire up the game, queue 5 more games, and yeah, 5 good games. And suddenly I was like, oh, okay. We're good now, we're in the clear. Like first game was like this Reno game where we triple into Orgazoa. I was like, boom, all right, golden Orgazoa as Reno. Didn't win that one, but got like 50 points for second because Advo was in. So that's the cool thing you talked about, right? As end of the month, if they're playing, right, then yeah, you do get some really sick lobbies because the tension is high, everybody's trying. And then if you also get like these high ranked players that are either they don't care because Advo can't qualify, or they're still on the cusp, like 17th, 15th, 14th, they might all still be playing to solidify their spot. You're getting a lot of points for even a second place. I think like 3 of the 5 games ended up in some kind of APM fashion where I was either doing, Naga APM or Dark Gaze APM. So yeah, just overall pretty epic finish. Getting 5 more good games at the end of like a 7 hour stream, or a stream for 7 hours, and then came back 5 more good games and then qualified. So that was my experience. A little different than you were just relax and watch the fools suffer. But I got
It
there.
wasn't like super relaxing watching you, suffer.
Sure, yeah, you were you were living through my stress, right? I think you were more stressed for the games than I was like that day, because I was just going in like, I might make it, I might not make it. I just started queuing. It's like, we'll see, man.
Nah, yeah, maybe I am, right? I'm just like, you're gonna make it. Like, just
Yeah, come on, Shady,
win
just do,
those damn
do the right
games.
plays. Stop doing the wrong plays and make the right plays.
It's just
so
that simple, shitty. Like, come on.
It's just that simple.
Yeah, but
Just play like Drew. Yeah.
we
Okay.
both made it, so that should be fun. Hopefully things work out here, because these qualifiers can be hard. But
Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna be in the same group again, but
it
we'll have to
doesn't
see.
matter. I'm
Yeah.
down. I'm done with caring too hard
Yeah.
about it.
They're
Like,
so brutal anyway. It's like if one of us makes it through, it's kind
it's
of
great.
already
Yeah,
good. Right?
yeah, it's great. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, guys. Still a little cough remains, but it's a lot better than before. So good stuff.
Yeah. Speaking of the qualifiers, there is also one tomorrow, I think. So, Lobby Legends number 5 is going to be happening in the morning. So around this time, basically.
The qualifier, right? Just to make sure, the qualifier for Lobby Legends 5, or is Lobby Legends 5 happening?
Yeah, because there's been like a big break between the qualifiers, because I believe of TorchCon, right? They didn't want to have anything going on during that time. So there's just been a big break. So it's been a while since I've been in the qualifiers, but we'll see. See how it goes. See how it feels. Hopefully things work out for me. But it's there's getting less stress about it. I guess I don't know. Just like you just try and you see, and then if you don't make it, you don't make it. Like it's whatever. These days, I still want to make it, but I don't feel any pressure. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe it's because it's been so long or whatever. But it's like
Well,
yeah.
getting used to it definitely is a factor there, right? Like if you're just like, if I've played enough in these things, sometimes I make it through, sometimes I don't. Like, all right, I'll just do my best, and that's all I can do.
Yeah, can't really beat yourself over it when it's like every month. You can't beat yourself every month like for this stupid thing. Like whatever. But yeah, we'll try. We'll see what we can do. Those are the lobbyists per se, so should be fun. But it's not like the biggest thing, right? Like if we make it, then we'll party, then we'll talk. But for now,
Yeah.
It doesn't matter, right? Because if you don't make it, it'll make nothing, right? If so it's like whatever.
Yeah.
Like you're getting all hyped to make $0. Like
It's like a badge of honor to play in the qualifiers, but you've played plenty of tournaments and you've made it to Lobby Legends Day 2, right? So there's no longer really a badge of honor for you, right? To play in the qualifiers, like it's just more
the
kind of a hassle that stands in between me and my my finals. So I will not be playing in this one. This one, I'm gonna just clarify that. I did not qualify. I think I want to say 3 qualifiers. It's been at least 2, but I think it's 3. I think or maybe it's 2 actually, because I did hit this month, right? Yeah, either way, it's 2 or 3 qualifiers that I missed. Not a big deal. But hey, I'm in the next one. So the
I've
next
also,
one
I
I'll be
mean, I
playing.
didn't qualify to a final, so basically I missed them too. You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
the same.
it
It's really
sounds
the
the
same.
same.
It's really the same, Shady.
So you've only made it to 1 more Lobby Legends than I have. That
Yeah.
sounds
So
about right.
yeah. So it's not that much any difference.
So if I make it on my qualifier, right, then hopefully we both get to add another one to our belt.
Sure.
Yeah, I like that more, that metric. You either make it or you don't. Binary.
Yeah. Did Victor not make it to this qualifier? I don't think so. I think he made it to this month's qualification, but
Yeah.
this was last month's qualification. So
It's surprising how the ladder still shifts quite a bit. Where I think, yeah, it's just that meta shifts and people's understandings and whether they like real life shit for me as well, right? Like if I have like months where I'm not
that's not
thinking well.
everybody. that's
Sure, but like someone's gonna have real life shit,
sure,
right?
sure.
So like that I'm not saying that's the main cause, but like real life shit happens and you're not playing so well, meta shifts happen, etc. So also just plain like you qualified, you had a great streak, and then you had a bad streak, you didn't qualify. So we do see quite some names changing from month to
Yeah,
month.
I would say it's like the same 32. You know what I mean? Like per region, there's like the top 16, but like it's like they're switching between 32 people. If
Sure.
like
Yeah.
I would like to know how many people from how many people from each region, like what are the numbers? How many like total, like
How many have made it in total?
yeah, like per region.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that would be cool to see, to just have a list of players, right? Like that have ever qualified
Yeah, that have
for the
ever qualified, yeah. Like I
uh,
wonder if it's different. Like in Asia Pacific, it's just 20 people. Like only 4 other have made
it's 4
it.
people rotating.
Where in
Right?
EU, it's like 60 players because there's no consistency.
We definitely have some shakeups in our ladder. It's less of a feels like you guys have more of a system organized to it, but our ladder is pretty
in NA,
if
yeah, in NA, it's like the same folks. Yeah, like
I guess that just that has to do with just having more people playing on the EU server, but it's that's cool. Yeah. It'll be obviously we'll be rooting for Collins. Hope you do well.
any good players you guys look for? My own performance Everyone else, and Shady, whenever he's there,
Yeah,
but
I
everyone
think
else, I don't care.
as long as Collins is still in, the answer is Collins, right? Like
Yeah,
if Collins isn't in, then we can say like, oh, like here
yeah.
and there,
Then
be
maybe
fun to watch.
someone else. Yeah, I'm with you. Same thing.
I guess we can see like people that you're not playing by default. We can look at those lobbies, right? So
Uh,
it's lobby 2 and 5 for you, right?
yeah, yeah. So I mean, lobby 1-4. It's like Mr. Incredible, Sleepy, Waterloo, of course.
Beater,
Peter's playing
Befriend,
finally.
Soren, right? Soren was with.
RDU, always an RDU fan here.
Yep, yep, yep.
Elemental
Soren,
Mega. He always in the EU games, and I'm just like, all right, go and do stuff. He also talks in the Discord. Maybe that's why he's familiar.
yeah, I definitely see him in chat here and there.
Yeah. Lobby 3, Bofer, Zixo, Jeef, Ken, Matsuri, Babo Fat. Those would
I
be
think it'd
my.
be from that lobby. I think it'd be cool to see Jeef go through because he's been just such an absolute ladder beast, right? Just
Yeah.
be like, oh, somebody took my rank 1. Like, fuck that. I'll try to get it back. Like, just I think it's now him and Waterloo that are kind of like passing it on. So
If I wanted it, I could take it. I just don't care. You know.
I don't doubt it, Carlos. I don't doubt
I know you don't. You actually believe me when I say that now. Good.
Well, you've been rank 1, right?
Yeah, I know.
So
I'm just saying, like,
I think when you've been rank 1, you get to talk a little shit. Yeah, a little shit talk afforded. I think if you haven't been
it's not
rank
shit
1,
talk though. I just don't want it anymore. It's like so
well,
much effort.
I think if you say, "Oh, I could do this, I'm just not doing it," that by
Yeah,
default is a little
I do
like,
agree with you. It's
yeah, right,
I,
that's not
like
so
you got to give credit to the people that are rank 1. Like they're
that are
obviously doing
actually,
something better.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
But I think if it's coming from a former
But
rank 1, it's okay.
let's say there was like monetary value for rank 1,
Yeah,
right? I would be rank 1. I just tell you that right now. But there's not. It doesn't matter, so I don't care. And
it's I
the
think you have
viewership
that
and stuff is like
confidence.
whatever.
Well, you say that, right? But like, let's say you put that
Maybe
up.
Waterloo. I would
But
say
I was
Waterloo.
gonna say exactly right. If
I'll
you
give
tell
credit.
Waterloo,
I'll
like,
give credit
hey,
to Waterloo. He might
yeah,
also be like
the guy's an
just as
animal,
crazy.
man.
But I'm saying
Yeah.
like it's definitely doable for sure.
I can even see like XQN being like, oh,
I'm not playing
okay,
on
right?
EU though. Yeah.
Yeah, but
You're
he's
saying
held
just say on
he's
the
held
NA
both
server.
rank
He
1.
just go on the NA server and take it. I can
Yeah, but
see that. Like
at some point he's held rank 1 in A and EU.
yeah.
He's done that in the past,
Same
right?
thing. I
Same as
mean, there's a
Waterloo.
couple of people like that.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you say a couple, but it's been Waterloo, it's been XQN, and I don't know who else has held rank 1 NA and EU simultaneously. Like that's an achievement,
Well,
man. Like
simultaneously, yeah, maybe not. But
that's
like
insane.
during
Yeah.
a season,
Senior probably senior health,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
He's
During a season, there's been multiple people.
yeah. People go up and down
Yeah,
rank 1,
yeah,
but
yeah.
to play enough and to play consistently enough to hold rank 1 on the two, I'd say out of the Western stuff, the two most competitive servers, that's insane, right?
What do you
That's
mean most?
showing.
They're all competitive. There's like literally 4 servers. they're all competitive.
Well, I'd say okay, maybe this is just impression, right? But it feels like the Asia Pacific one is not as competitive. I feel like a lot of their strong players that don't even want to play there, right?
I don't
'Cause,
like. Yeah, you see, I don't know enough to talk about that, right?
I guess that is maybe a bit preemptive,
Yeah.
but just to say, 2 out of the 4 servers, right? They're all.
Yeah.
Let's just say they are all
See,
equally
who's the
competitive.
one being presumptuous here? I was like,
Well, we can't play China, so I can't talk about that, right? And I'm just going off what I've observed, right, from the Asia Pacific server, given the sort of annoying connection
you could
a lot
argue
of
the
people.
China server is the most competitive just because they have the most player base.
Well, it could be, right, but we
You
don't
just
know.
don't know. Yeah.
And that's also not
But I
Western.
mean, you could talk to like Waterloo or so. Like,
Yeah.
does have access to that. So
But either way, it doesn't matter. It's like a very small point. Like the main point is holding rank 1
very
simultaneously on
impressive.
any
Yeah,
2 servers is just absolutely crazy.
I agree with that wholeheartedly. And anyone who says they can do it, they're crazy. Even me. Like, yeah.
You got to be a little crazy. Yeah.
No, I know, but like you can't just be like, oh yeah, like I could do it. Like even me, I'm not saying that kind of stuff. Per se.
So
My
you're not.
home server maybe, but like go over there playing EU, get rank 1 EU while holding NA still. It's a bit rough, you know. So, but yeah, I mean, generally like they're all a lot of good players in here, as it always is. So we'll see what we can do. Should be fun copium, unless you're losing. Right? It's always fun unless you're losing. That's
Yeah.
that's what I've noticed with these games. They're fun until you're losing, and then they're not fun. But we'll do our best, see if we can get there. Other than that, not too much. But yeah, anything more you want to talk about Lobby Legends in particular, the qualifying or the? Oh yeah, we should mention this month. I should have made this a topic, but I forgot. But this month I believe the will be the MMR reset, and due to that, the cutoff for this month should be earlier than last month. So it should be like it shouldn't be the end of the month where the cutoff happens. It should be earlier. So those that are planning on grinding for Lobby Legends, like make sure you do your grind early. Make sure you're ready for it to be like much earlier, maybe a week, maybe more, for the cutoff this month. So just something to be aware of, I would say.
Yeah, the exact date, like you said, it's a
Up
bit
in
of a
the air,
guess.
yeah.
It's kind of a guessing game, right? But um, we do know that it will not be the very end of the month. So take that for what it is. Uh, don't be too surprised if you're playing like, oh, I'll have like what 4 more weeks. It's possible it's 3 weeks. It's possible it's 2 weeks. It's just going to depend on when they announce it. So it's not like you're really going to play super different. It's like, oh shit, I gotta win some games.
Maybe I'll care at the beginning of a month.
Yeah.
Like,
So I think for the very last days, you can start going all in, right? Where you say, okay, in order for me to make it now, I just gotta play more, even when I'm a bit tired or whatever. But we do assume that it won't be like, oh, by the way, tomorrow, they're not gonna do that. So you will have
I really wouldn't put it. Actually, I would. I'd be very like, what the hell? Like,
okay. The assumption is that you will probably still have enough time to do those, do or die plays where you say, okay, I'm gonna do the 12-hour marathon today and then again tomorrow to try and get there. Those are cool, right? Streamers do them, players do those marathons to just say, because if I were to get there, I need to play a lot, so therefore I'm going to do it and just hope that I play well enough, and we should still have enough time for that. But yeah, you should be playing largely the way you're normally playing. You should just play and try to win, right? That's what you're doing. Don't play when you're super tired, when you feel like you're just going to be throwing. Just try to get those good games in, and then go rest or whatever, come back, or just do it again tomorrow.
yeah. I also like someone had a comment like, um, there always seems to be this notion that you need to play a lot to be high rank. Like you need to be playing 10 hours a day or 12 hours a day or so. But that's really not the case. You see some of the top players, they just have good stats. Like if you look at their stats, like it's always sub like 3.0, sub 3.0 average. And if you're just winning a majority of your games, you're gonna climb. Like you can play like 3 hours a day and just be
Yeah.
very high rank. You don't need to
So
play that much. Yeah.
this is a cool topic to talk about, I think, to jump on, because this is indeed a thing that comes up. I think there's two sides to it. I think if you were to take a player that is extremely good at the game, it is correct what you're saying in that they can play 3 hours a day perfectly fine.
Yeah,
And
I'm kind of talking about myself or my
yeah.
experience.
But this is the thing. You didn't start off playing only 3 hours a day. So the point
No.
that I would like to make is that the time that is needed to get to the point where you can get away with 3 hours a day is obviously a lot more than 3 hours a day. So you're going to invest a lot more time to get really good. And then once you're at that point where you're really good, that's where you can dial it back and say, I'll just play a few hours a day and I'll be fine. Because obviously your win rate is going to be a lot better. So If your win rate is worse, but still positive, then obviously the more time you invest, the more you're going to climb. So it's true-ish in that if you are, I'm not even going to say that, if as long as you just play enough, you can get on the leaderboard, you can get top 16, because that's not true. But if you are a player that is good enough to have a positive win rate, the more you play, the more you'll climb. That is true for the most part, right? Assuming that you're playing and you're still playing well enough. Right? If you're obviously playing when you're tired and your win rate goes down, then you should stop playing. But as long as you're playing well enough to have the positive win rate, you will be climbing. But it is because this argument comes up a lot of the time when people are talking about how qualifiers are gated because you need to just invest a lot of time, and people with normal jobs or whatever, we can't do it because it's this and that. And my instinct when that comes up is to ask, well, if you can do that, how do you expect to be better than the players that are on the leaderboard? So like it makes little sense to me that you can't free up enough time to play the game to climb. Then I think you also can't free up enough time to actually get good at the game. Like, and when I say good at the game, that's a very
top 16 at the
elitist term there, right? When I say good at the game, I'm talking like extremely good at the game, right? It's like we're talking, like Collins says, top 16 good at the game, because those players, they can, right? They can put in the 3-4 hours and they'd be fine. But in order to get to that point, they played a whole lot more. They played a whole lot more, right? Because whenever you're learning a game, you're discovering a game, like it's so easy to just like 12 hours, 14 hours, because you're like, oh, this is the shit, man. This is so much fun. I'm just gonna, go all in and have a good time. And yeah, you learn a lot and you learn fast.
I guess that is true. That's a decent point. I wasn't like calculating into the argument that there is an initial amount of time you do have to invest to have a decent level of skill to be good enough to top 16. Like I don't think it's reasonable for me to just like play TFT and just be like, I'll make it to the TFT qualifiers. Like, just give me
like 3 hours of TFT a day.
3 hours of TFT a day.
I'll be top 10.
That's,
catch me top 10.
That's not happening. Yeah, I would have to play so much initially to get to the point where I could now play 3 hours and do okay. So
and we're talking almost daily as well. For what is this, like, how long has it been for BG for you? Is like 2 years?
I mean, since it came out, right? Like, yeah. So
whatever, we can check that out. For me, it's been more than a year, and I only came in during the prize meta. So for you, it's likely going to be 2 years.
Yeah, it's probably like nearing 2 years, I would say.
So we're talking years of near daily, right? Like maybe a little TFT streak here, something happened there, this or that, but still over the span of 2 years, near daily practice, and a lot of them long days. Like, yeah, that is, you can't just dismiss that and say, oh, I can do that in something else and just like a couple hours a day. You'd be great at TFT, right? 3 hours a day, but you wouldn't be top 10.
No. So yeah, there is that initial burst, and maybe that is the gated portion, where it's like, do you have time to do the initial burst? Like, it's not
that's your skill, right? Like then you're just measuring your skill. Like, do you have time to build up your skill? If you didn't have time to build up your skill, then you wouldn't really fare well in the tournament to begin with.
Yeah, but then there holds some truth to their statement though. Like, that's the issue. Like, there is some truth to that. Like, you do have to have some amount of time to get to the point where you're good enough, where you can just play
Absolutely.
the 3 hours.
Well, I would say there's I don't think that anyone is going to say like, well, this isn't fair. You've practiced a lot and you're good at this. Right? Like, people aren't taking that angle, right? But they would more take the angle of, this isn't fair. You have more time to play, and as long as you play a lot, you'll make it. I think that's the approach that's being taken most of the time. Most of the time, people don't say, well, this isn't fair. Well, you've practiced a lot and you're good at this.
That approach is wrong.
Yeah, I know. It's so wrong. But you would be surprised the kind of just like arguments people twist themselves into to protect your ego, right? Be like, I could do this. Like, if I had a little bit more time, I could do this. It's like, well, you haven't spent the time to practice to get good enough where you can say that. But whatever, yeah, we don't have to like continue down this road. But I just thought it was interesting to point out that there is definitely a time portion, but it's to develop your skill. It's not
Yeah.
because you have to
Like
grind to.
let's say you could, like, hypothetically, you could take someone's skill level, or so, like,
Yeah.
Waterloo, whatever. You could take that skill level, put it into that person complaining, and they have like their responsibilities times crazy. They only have like 3 hours, 4 hours.
Yeah.
That person with, like, that skill level could still make it to top 16 because they now have the skill level acquired. So even with the time constraint, they could still do it. But
It's not
the
even
problem is, like,
yeah.
it takes so long to get to that point where you could be good enough to do it with the time constraints.
Yeah.
Is the issue.
It's not even a hypothetical thing, right? You can literally see it in people making alts and playing on the alts as well.
Yes,
And
I know. I'm
and,
just,
we,
but
and you
like,
could have a pet project, right? Where you say, okay, I will not
that
play more
it's a
than
lot
4
easier
hours
for
or
them
3
to
hours.
grasp, is what I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
them people playing on alts, it's not like, oh well, they play on alts, but they play all
You just
day.
played
So
a lot on
yeah,
your alts,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah.
But like, I'm saying, like, if you could take those players' skill levels and put it to the people that are complaining about the time constraints, with that skill level, they could still make it to top 16. It's just that you haven't done enough of the previous work, to have that amount of skill level where the time constraint isn't a problem. But for the people at top 16, the time constraint isn't necessarily an issue anymore. That's not an excuse for them. Like, they could still do it, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. They can miss like a lot of days and just be like, all right, I'll just sit
Lee
down.
qualified. He played like a week this month. He played like, I was like, you played like a week this month. You're on Europe the whole month, and you still
shitty
made it.
hotel Wi-Fi with I don't know. Like when I saw him play, it felt like it was a touchpad. It probably wasn't a touchpad, but when I saw him click, it was a painful, like, go to the card, click the card, move the card, click again, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. When you see someone, you're like, you start stressing for them, like, are you going to be able to finish the turn? And be like, oh, cool, I won a game at 14K, nice, right? Like, let me just play for my shitty hotel Wi-Fi, just get a quick little window, shit like that, where you're like, yeah, because Lee has put in the time because he has the skill, right? He doesn't need to sit there and grind 12 hours a day. All right. Good stuff. Yeah, let's go to the next topic. That was fun.
Yeah. So, final topic is just like kind of a discussion of the meta. Just kind of how we feel about the meta. Do we like it? Do we hate it? Da da da. Like, just full disclosure, I don't hate the meta or anything. I like, obviously, it's not super balanced per se, but it's better than the previous meta, I would say. Like, I know last week we were talking about their grease bar remover, and I was kind of like, did they have to remove grease bar? And you were like, well, does mechs need a late game composition? Like, is that even necessary for mechs? And I was like, well, you could have like nerfed a little bit. Now I'm just like, grease bar remover, that is actually fine. Like, get out of my game. Man is way healthier without this grease rod nonsense at all. So I'm kind of down with your point here. Like, do mechs need late game like Greasebot edition? Honestly, like, Greasebot coming back a nerf state, like, I probably wouldn't hate it, but I don't want it to be like something I want to force or like super. It has to be like, oh, I hit double Greasebot, oh, now that's viable, maybe, like, that's more of a, and still remove macro. Like, I'm still down. Like, obviously macro isn't that big of a deal that much. It's really only Buster comps that can really like fully utilize it. And you have some like people still doing the ton and macro thing, but it's really not as prevalent anymore. So doesn't feel as bad, but like, that's more of the problem. They keep deleting the innocent bystanders, or the scapegoat. They delete the scapegoat so often. Where the mastermind gets to live every time, and the scapegoat is like, what, Greaseman? Well, I'm not even that big of a and Macro's like, ha 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 ha, I'm the problem.
Dodged another one, boys.
Dodged another one, yeah. Same thing with Cookie and whatnot. It's quite interesting, but
what you're saying there, I think I just want to jump on that before I lose that train of thought. I'm with you there, that I'm afraid that they're just gonna like scale Greaseball down a little bit in terms of numbers, and that it's still gonna be the same thing where, well, if I can module a macro and have a board full of divine shields with a Greasebot, it's still dumb.
yeah.
Because how big the macros got with Greasebot now, they didn't need to be that big. Like this was just like stupid, completely overpowered bullshit big. If they're a little bit smaller, they still win, right? That still wins.
Yeah.
Absorbing your entire board because you have a taunted macro, that still just beats you. I don't want to be in a position where, again, I'm like, well, I gotta have a Wind Fury or I gotta have a Leroy. And if I have a Leroy, I gotta hope they only have the one taunt because otherwise I'm screwed. That's the feeling that sucks, where you're like, well, if it's a taunted macro, it's just gonna absorb my whole board and scale a bunch and I'm dead. So I really hope that they don't allow for that to be a thing anymore. But yeah, short of just removing the macro, I don't know how they do that, because like even making Greasebot 2-1, right, which was a suggestion that was thrown out a lot. That'll be enough, I think, if you have a 2-1 Greasebot pumping that.
There is a way to solve macro without deleting it. I'm kind of a hater sometimes, where I'm just like, I hate this card. Delete this card. Damage should, Death Rattle should only deal one, and they do some other random solution which doesn't solve my main issue, but like it kind of alleviates some of the deals. But with macro, if you wanted to keep the card in and not have it like as toxic, you just put a limit to the amount of reshielding it can do, right? Like, you could limit 2 or limit 1, where it can only reshield once or twice, where it's like, okay, well, you can get the reshield twice, like, okay, well, I mean, that's still really good, but it removes that case where you're bouncing, bounce. It's like, leave that card. that is way too much of a high roll that is even possible. It's almost like Gas Curler can hit Gas Curler, like that. That's how it feels. Yeah. So it's just like, why is that allowed?
I'm not sure whether they like that or not, though. That's the thing, because they might like that, where it's like player experience, be like, it does macros, and they kept
how can you think of the player experience and be like, that is okay? We like it that players can lose in this fashion.
Well, that's the thing, right? Like, it's the same thing if you're using like a box of Yogg-Sothoth or some shit, right? Like the receiving end can feel awful.
But the percentage for that isn't low. It's not low.
I know. So, well, it depends what kind of setup, right? If we're just talking, you have the 2 macros and they randomly reset and you have a good fight. That's, to me, kind of acceptable. Like, for me, that's not acceptable. For me, what's not acceptable.
It's already not acceptable.
Yes. All right, whatever. Just the fact that it's possible for you.
Like, you can also get like 3 macros too. Like, you know what I mean?
No,
and then it's
we covered
you're talking like that is impossible.
No,
you're saying like
3
macros? Impossible. I've never seen someone with 3 macros on the board in my life. Like, what do you mean?
If you have a 3rd macro, for every person that has a 3rd macro, there's 9 people that died because they tripled their macro.
Yes, right? I agree. But it's doable. It's very there are some heroes that can do it.
Frogs are doable as well, but a lot of the time you die before you have them. So
how many times have you lost to frogs? You're talking like you never died of frogs. Frogs kill people.
Sometimes it happens, right? Sometimes it happens. So I guess my point was like, let them have sometimes the bullshit happens.
And I'm saying it happens too often. 2 macros is already too much bullshit.
Okay, but don't bring up 3 macros.
I'm just saying but it is a concept that happens in games, In my games, maybe because I do it more than the average player.
I was going to say, how many times do your opponents at your level of play?
Never.
Okay,
but how many times do I do it?
Yeah, does that fucking matter then?
Too often.
You're having this conversation and you're saying like, I've never seen an opponent.
I've never seen my opponent do it, but I've done it, because they don't have the balls, Shady. They don't have the balls to play 5 macros.
No, the problem is that we talked this. We covered this in a previous podcast. You gave yourself a chance to lose by tripling your macro, but you're good enough to cover that up.
Yeah.
You would have won that game no matter what if you kept 2 macros. macros, right? You
But
just wanted the high
I
roll.
win way harder, Shady. With 5 macros, I win way harder. They have no chance. It goes from like 90% to win to 99.9,
Yeah,
Shady.
but see, this is my problem. Like, if we're talking about the card, I want to talk about relevant issues. I don't want to talk about the thing that never happens.
It happens. I see it in my
But
games.
let's say we talk about that and the devs, because that's so easy for the devs to then say, yeah, but how often does 3 macros happen? Okay, that's not a good argument. We'll just move on. Like, I don't think you want to put that forward as an argument. But the argument
I'm just throwing it out there. It's not the main point, Shitty. I'm just saying I do it sometimes.
Let's not put too much emphasis on the 3 macros.
All right, 2 macros. I'm saying 2 macros is enough of a problem. And you were like, no, and I'm saying, well, 3 macros.
Well, I'm saying the one I'm much more afraid of is the taunted macro grease spot. That one, and then a full
or double taunted macro or something like that.
Yeah, or double taunt. But once the module's on it, that's for me, because then you take a lot of the RNG out of the equation.
Yeah,
and it's really not healthy to create a meta where it's like, well, you either have a Leroy that hits the right target or you're not winning this.
You see, the thing is, like, when you go double taunted macro grease spot, even if you have a Leroy, it doesn't matter. You know what I mean? Because, like, you kill one and then the other one just solos your board, and then it doesn't matter.
So that's the thing, right? Like, taunted macro with grease spot, that to me is very, very toxic, and I really don't want that, because I'm with you, by the way. We've kind of just really jumped on this grease spot macro thing, but I'm with you that I actually really enjoy the game right now. I enjoy it more than when grease spot was the meta. Not that I hated the game when grease spot was the meta, but this meta, it feels a lot more just creative and like beautiful.
You can showcase your skill, basically.
Yeah, I've played so many different things.
Yeah.
It's so cool. Like, it's like, I've played so many APM pirates. Like, you couldn't really do many APM pirates when Greasebot was meta because the divine shields would kill you.
Yeah.
You just die, right? Like,
you'd have to do anything.
So big. Yeah, you'd basically be playing shields or anti-shield, or you'd have to massively high roll. Or Scalicomp or something, right? Something that counters a little bit. Scalicomp be okay. But I've played APM pirates, I played Nomi, I'm playing dragons, right? There's like so many different, and obviously like Nagas and Quillboar, but those are pretty meta. But I've played a lot of the off-meta shit, and I think that that's now possible because we don't have that like super oppressive, like, oh, I got a grease spot and a macro, and I've got my whole game plan figured out after my triple.
Yeah, there's nothing. I guess except for Quillboars, and then I don't know if I can say dragons are oppressive. You know what I mean? Like, it is kind of oppressive, but can I say it's like oppressive? Like,
we may as well just get to it, right? Because like viewers are gonna be, or listeners are gonna be waiting for like, aren't they gonna talk about Chromo-Wing? Like, let's just talk about Chromo-Wing when you're talking about dragons being oppressive. You want to go first?
Chromo-Wing is oppressive, I would say. For sure, Chromo-Wing is oppressive.
It's dumb. It's very dumb.
Yeah. And got to question who said okay to this. Like kind of got to question it a little bit. But the fact that the 1-drops are better than like anything on 2. Like, if you can get like double Chromo-Wing, that's better than anything you can hit on 2. And a lot of times better than things on 3 too. Like, there's some combos on 3 which are better than Chromo-Wing, I would say. Like the
when you say on 3, you're saying, oh, I've bought Chromo-Wing. My opponent went 3 on 3. We fight each other. I win with my Chromo-Wings. Right?
Yeah, I'm saying like someone started the game with Bristleback Brood and a gem generator, and they can still lose to Chromo-Wing. Like, what is
they will probably.
What is that? Like, how? What? Like, so you can't tell me that and think that's okay. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Most definitely not okay.
Yeah, but it's just very weird that this card in its form, like, it seems they didn't think players would abuse it, and it always feels like that's the case to me when they design cards. Like, there's a lack of like, will players abuse this, like in their quality control or whatever. Like, the lack of that question gets asked. Like, oh, So Chroma Wing gets better if you get friendly dragons. What are the edge cases? Oh, they buy all the dragons on one. Let's test that. How good is that? That's better than anything on tier 2 and tier 3. Maybe we should change that. No, that question did not get asked. Or it got ignored or something, and that just seems weird to me. Like, you got to redesign this, because I don't think there's no way Chroma Wing's staying in the same capacity, I think. Or if it does, that's a problem, I think, because it's too strong in its current form. It dwarfs the meta when dragons are in, because you're allowed to stay on one and then be stronger than anyone who does anything else and stay on one and hits that. And that just seems weird to me. Like, Tavern Tipper kind of has that same vibe, but Tavern Tipper has that huge drawback of it costs gold, you need to, and it's you can't run it into a real comp. It's not a type.
The thing with Tavern Tipper is that when you have two Tavern Tippers, it already feels a little bit too good, I think.
Yeah, but there are drawbacks. But
like I'm making my point, right?
Okay.
Like, so you're playing Tavern Tipper, and you need to float a gold.
Yeah.
It's not a type. You will have to sell it at some point, unless you're Vol'jin and you save the stats or whatever. But most normal heroes that will run it, and I still absolutely love a double Tavern Tipper start. I think in this meta, if you can get two tippers to start with, you stay on one, you freeze that third Tavern Tipper, you get a free pretty much tier to 5 because you're so strong. You triple into 6. That's amazing.
When dragons aren't in.
Well, even when dragons are in, like, because the one saving grace, I would say,
you don't take that much damage.
It's like you're fighting a Daryl every time. It's like a Daryl. They're all Daryls. Every Chroma player is a Daryl. You're like, take 5, take 6, take 7, whatever. It's not like the Togwaggle 15, right? Like, turn 5, bad luck, motherfucker. Take 15. So Tavern Tipper, I would say, for me, right, is an amazing card, and it's actually just trash compared to Chroma Wing. That's the problem, right? Like, so I'm describing a card for me like that has a lot of drawbacks that I still think is a fantastic card. One that, if you could sign me up, like if I'd have to play all day tomorrow and every single starting shop has 2 Tavern Tippers, but I can't get Chroma Wings, deal, right? I'm done. Like, every time, like, assign that every time, every start
you
is
can't get Chroma Wings.
Yeah, I think, but in return, every single start you get 2 Tavern Tippers. Right? I think that on average that balance.
You see, the cheat is that Tavern Tippers in every lobby and dragons are not. So and that's not. I don't think that's a fair call, because you have the lobbies. It doesn't even matter that dragons aren't in, and the Tipper start might just be
you're still getting. Well, okay, if you could obviously give me the thing of, like, you can start to Chroma Wings, obviously I'd take that one instead.
Yeah,
right? But
exactly. That's what I'm saying.
But I'm saying in general, if I would have to sign something that said, all right.
Yeah, double Tavern Tipper is a strong start. I don't think anyone's. Well, there are some people that argue that, but
I'm just saying that if I would have to play an entire day with just like 2 Tavern Tipper start, I would love that. Like, I'd sign for that. Like, deal. But yeah, anyways, bit convoluted. Coming back to the point. Chroma Wing is too good. So there was a comment in chat, like, I'll just pick up on this because this is something that I think is good to talk about, to explain just why is it so good. So there's a comment here that says Chroma Wing falls off pretty hard in the late game, though. And this is the thing where what Chroma Wing does is sometimes it provides you direction, right? Where you have huge Chroma Wings, you triple into a Caligos, and you're off to the races. You have good dragons on your board already and can start buffing. Most of the time, I would say what Chroma Wing does is you very likely, or somewhat likely, have a triple in your shop frozen because you've stayed on tier 1 for so long. And this is usually what happens in the warrior curve. People have a triple. So let's just go for the best case scenario just to point out how stupid it is. You have 2 chromas and 2 whelps. That means every turn you're gaining +4/+4 on your chroma, so that's +8/+8 total. Gaining +8/+8 total, that is more than playing a menagerie jug every turn. that is 1 jug and a third of a jug. So starting on tier 2, right? So like 7 gold, we go into tier 2. That's so in one turn, you've played 2 and 2/3 of a jug. Like just think about that, right? Like you're going from tier 1 to tier 3 on 7 gold by double leveling, and that's 2 menagerie jugs and 2/3 of a jug that are being played on my board.
It's better than a jug though.
Yeah, but it's focused on the units you're keeping,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
So
it's
it's
even
not
better than a
you,
jug.
like the jug example doesn't
But
even work because
I'm just
the
purely
jug
giving
example is a worse example than what's actually
then
happening. It's just
then
funny.
okay. I will describe it here. And this is actually going to really drive the point. +4/+4 on each of your chromas. That means you have 2 golden senseis on your board buffing.
There we go. That's my
Yeah,
example.
yeah. So like 2 golden senseis on your board. Like they don't do combat, right? The 4/4s, they're invisible, but they're buffing every turn. 2 golden senseis. Just think about that. 2 golden senseis starting on 7 gold on your board, buffing your guys. And it happens every time you level. So what happens in that situation is tier 5 is a given. Like you're always going to tier 5, and there is a really good chance you haven't lost the fight by then. You can, right, against a Togwaggle, you can against an insane 3-on-3 Quilboar start, you can versus someone that has a better chromoing board like a Ysera, but most of the time you arrive on tier 4, you arrive on tier 5, and you just haven't taken damage after the 7 gold turn or the 6 gold turn, right? Which means that there's a very good chance you just get to go to 6 and play whatever the hell you want, or you can just roll on tier 5 for your triples and do other stuff, or you can just take your triple from the shop, which you probably have. It's a Dark Gaze Elder. You're full HP. You have a Dark Gaze Elder on your board because the triple was pretty much free because you were allowed to stay on tier 1. Like usually when you stay on tier 1, there are a lot of drawbacks associated with that. You have weaker units on your board than your opponents. You're taking a lot of damage. You need to weigh like, do I have to take the triple now? I'm taking a lot of that. Like this is the classic kind of Reno thing, right? You're playing a Reno, you're warrior curving, you probably have some alley cats on your board, or you have some
I played a
Mentals on
Reno
your
game
board.
and I hate Reno, and I only won because I was like, well, dragons are, and I'll play Reno.
Yeah, just like Reno. It's insane. Reno is so
Hmm.
good now, right? I love Reno. I think Reno is very good with dragons. But yeah, but that's the point, right? You take the whole essence of the warrior curve, which is I'm going to exchange power on my board for a guaranteed triple, right? I'm staying on tier 1, I'm forcing a triple. But now you have not only the triple, not only are you not much weaker, you're stronger than the people that are leveling. So that just makes it such a backward situation. Like that should never happen. You're being rewarded for staying on tier. You're being rewarded for making the conventionally weaker play that will pay off later. But not only do you get to pay off later, you get to also keep all your health. It's insane. So that you're on tier 5, you've taken your triple. Even if you miss, right? Let's say you get an Adina, that's no longer really a miss. It's a conventional miss, I would say, because you don't want scaling. But you put your Nadina down, you level again the turn after, and you just start rolling for Kali, you start rolling for Dark Gaze. So it's, yeah, that I think that puts it really in perspective, right? Just keep that in mind that you have 2 golden senseis on the board in terms of buffs. It's absolutely insane.
It can also be better than that. Like there are heroes that can like get more dragons, like so.
Sure, Ysera puts it to the next level.
Yeah. But I had
It's
like a
like
bear.
7 golden senseis.
I also had like a bear off game where I was just like switching my minions for dragons every level, and so I just ended up having 7 dragons. I was just like leveling with 7 dragons. So I was just like, this isn't fair. Like so. There are heroes that could do other, like they can abuse it too, like even higher than the high roll. Yeah. So.
Yeah, and we must say, like, sure, we describe a good scenario, but 2 chromas and 2 whelps is hardly unthinkable high
Yeah,
roll.
it's not the craziest story.
Exactly. You rolled 2 chromas and you rolled 2 whelps. That's not that crazy, guys. And if you're a Tess or a Scabs, it's almost a given, right? You just steal it from the other people. So
once again, Tessa's kind of good. Who would have guessed? The meta's not that balanced.
when people like doing the same thing, you just like scabs. Like I love scabs, man. The amount of times I've stolen a crumble wing of scabs, I'm just like, nice. I needed that.
Yeah, bit monka. But I mean, regardless from all that, like there are lobbies, no dragons, and even
Yeah.
in dragon lobbies, it's not like everyone's playing dragons. There's gonna be a significant amount of dragon players because it's so easy to go from like
They just wanna
huge
do it.
chroma to Kali. Like it's not a weird transition. So you will see a lot of Kalis and Deans and stuff like that. But even in those lobbies, you can play other things. It's not like dragons guarantee to win. Like like Kali scaling is playable, but it's not unbeatable, especially if other options are available to you. Nagas and whatnot. So
Yeah. And I think this also goes to show how good the meta is in general, because despite this chroma wing thing being around, I'm having a great time. And I don't feel like it's actually impacting my results that much that opponents are doing this, because it's like you get dropped off at a higher tier, but then it's still up to you, right? Like you've been given this lead. How are you going to capitalize on it? Yeah.
I agree with you. Like it's different in what's being abused, right? Like so normally with busted comps, the abuse is like once you hit the comp, it's free to play from here and you can win,
You just win,
right? But
Yeah.
what this abuse is I'll get you to a high tier with very high health. Now figure out what to do. And that does require skilled execution from there. Like unless you like triple Kali, double Kali, or Kali Nadina, ooh, I'll just play Kali, blah 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 battle cries. Like except for like that edge case, it's not very clear if you drop me off tier 6 high health, I'm like, okay, let's play the
over,
game.
yeah. It's over.
If you give it to someone else, it's like, what am I doing
They
here?
might be dead in 3 turns. They might legitimately
Yeah,
be
they
dead.
might be dead. Yeah, exactly. So because of that, even though this is definitely a weird card, a weird execution, the amount of abuse isn't as clear and isn't as repeatable. I would say, like every game's not going to look the same from the same starting point. The chromas give you, where if you give someone like 2 grease spots, oh, what their end board look like, it's all the same every time, So yeah, so because of that, even though I do agree, like chroma is a problem, it doesn't feel that bad meta wise, because it still requires execution and it's still hard to play from that point on. So I'm down with your point. Like that is still not horrible.
It's still really stupid because like the game, you shouldn't have something. You shouldn't have something on tier 1 that carries you that hard. It's too crazy. And as you mentioned, right, there are heroes that go even crazier, like mainly Ysera. I think Ysera's win rate right now, it's disgusting.
Yeah. I thought I would have been like, okay, if like Sarah got hotfix removed. You know what I mean? Like, oh, okay, they understand there's a problem. But there's none of that. And we're just gonna wait a month of this, and then like maybe something gets changed.
Oh,
what if Sarah gets nerfed? What if that's
well, we do have the MMR reset coming up.
Yeah.
So if we once again, guys, the Lobby Legends qualifying period this month will not be the whole month. It'll be whenever the reset happens. And I'm assuming usually with a reset, a big patch happens, right? Like last time. Sorry, go ahead.
So you're saying like they'll change things up, kind of like the Light Spawn situation, where they're just like ignoring it, and then like once they. I mean, but they didn't even change Light Spawn when that happened, to be fair. Like Light Spawn's still.
Well, yeah, but the meta, I think was Acolyte out or Acolyte 2, right? Like whatever they did, it wasn't the Light Spawn meta anymore.
Yeah,
right?
It's because of the Acolyte, I would say.
So like we might have a change now. Like, was the last MMR reset, was that the Naga introduction? I think so.
I think so. Yeah. The Naga introduction.
So that was pretty impactful to the game, right? So I'm not saying we're gonna have a similar like the as big of a patch, but I think the devs will probably try to have some kind of game breaking, like or game altering. We don't call it
Game breaking.
yeah, but
The
probably
truth,
game breaking.
the truth slips out right there.
That's true. That's the Freudian slipper. Game breaking. Just some disruptive things happening, right? Like the meta will very unlikely be the same. So it is possible that they're going to hold out until then. Which, to be fair, I kind of don't even matter. I don't even care that much now, just because I'm having a great time.
I will say this isn't the most game breaking issue we've had in a while. You know what I mean? Like this issue of game breaking, it doesn't actually like ruin games fundamentally. Where some other issues of like I can't play the game, like friend of a friend jumps out to me because I hated it. I didn't hate it, but I had a tournament like very close after, and I didn't want to see a tournament with friend of a friend, and so like that one was like warping. But like this one, like sure, dragons are maybe overbusted, and tier 1 is like too strong. Very comparative to when Acolyte was in, but like it's better than that, I would say.
It's better than that. Yeah. Well, because what you would do with Acolyte, right? You'd still have to kind of triple and hope for the avenge.
Where you don't even need the triple. Yeah, that's true.
You don't have to hit, right?
Yeah, you don't have to hit anything.
Just 2 chromas, 2 whelps, and
you're
just
good.
tier for free.
Yeah,
that's and like
true.
Triples are a bonus.
Yeah. So yeah, you're right. Definitely better. So even with all that, like it's still not the worst. Like it's a problem, but like you can get away with it for a while, and at some point, like everyone will do it and be annoying. Like we're not at that point where everyone's on one scrolling forcing dragons, even though they should be. but
I will say forcing, I don't think is correct.
That's true. I'm with you're right. That's true.
Because there's plenty of games where dragons are in where
and
I just
don't roll.
I open my first chop, it's not a dragon. I open my second chop, it's not a dragon. I'm like, okay, I'll go to 2, right?
Yeah.
Because
you
can very easily top 8 where you say, I'm rolling, I'm not hitting.
See, this is where the skill matters, right? Because like that happens too in these games, right, where you're trying to force the dragons and you don't get it. And then what do you do now? Like you're on 1. You're on 1 with no dragons. Like what are you doing? Yeah, for sure.
You've been rolling as well, which means you probably haven't been buying. Because when we say force, it's kind of like Shutterwalk force alley cats, right? You just like roll for the cat. And at best you've bought like an economy piece here or there, but like that's not gonna do it. Because you have the people at 1 that successfully hit dragons, but then the rest tier to 2 and tier to 3, and they're gonna just like slap the shit out of you, right? Like imagine you just have some garbage ones. They don't, it's not tipper, it's not chroma wing, and you don't have a triple. You fight some cookie and you take 12 or some shit, right? Like taking so much damage. So yeah, you're just dead. But yeah, I will say, of course, if it presents itself to you, you should buy it. Right? Like a chroma wing on 1, you should lean into that. You should buy it. Because worst case scenario, like honestly, I was playing a game with Jackie earlier, and we're on tier 2, but we just have like a whelp and a random dragon on our board, and we're like, oh, should we buy this imprisoner? No, if we buy the chroma wing, it's a 3/3, and next turn it's a 4/4, next turn it's a 7/7. It's like it's still really dumb that the 1-drop is just like way stronger than the imprisoner, just because we happen to have 2 dragons on our board. So yeah, if it presents itself to you, you should definitely do it. But don't hard force it unless you have the hero for it. Ysera obviously forces it because you will roll a whelp or a chroma wing every single turn. And if you roll, you'll see multiple of those.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. I'm starting to think of like how they could do stuff. And I have some ideas, but I'm not gonna.
Yeah, the easy
they don't
the
pay
easy
me.
answer for this one is cookie out, chroma back to what it used to be.
Oh
But
yeah.
we don't.
Oh yeah, that's true. Cookie is its own separate issue that I'm not even talking. You're right. I haven't even talked about the cookie interaction and how that is still busted, and maybe even more busted than this chroma wing thing. But it's just like it's been in the game for a while, and it's just like
Just used to it.
yeah, Quillboar as a cookie is stupid. Like
I will say, yeah. Sorry, finish your thoughts.
interrupt me, Shady.
All right.
You should know this.
I will say, I will say that the last 2 days, I've done some fun stuff with Cookie Chemist, kind of the way it was intended, right? Where I'm like, oh, I've got a bunch of Murloc War Leaders on my board. I'm gonna flip. Oh, that's nice. I made some HP. Or earlier today, I was playing George and I had Arm, and it's like 60 damage taunt, and I like flipped it. Oh, it has 60 health now, and I can rebuff the damage because of my Arm of the Empire. There's so much, it's like that's cute, that's fun, and I think that's exactly what they were going for when they said, hey, let's have the stats flipping in BG and let's do some cool things. But then of course we degenerates were like, oh, I can gain +80 moving my gems, like just like like making the stats permanent by using the aura flip. Like that's not what it was intended for, I'm assuming, but that's what we use it for. And they're not changing the interaction, so it feels like they're okay with that. But I think it's really hard to be okay with that from a balance point of view. Like, how can you be okay with like, okay, I rolled 2 cards. Clearly, this means I'm going to increase my board's power by +80 or +120. Dude, earlier this week, I moved a 400 gem stack. I literally gained +400.
Yeah, and the problem as well is like you can put it on anything. Like that's too problematic.
Yeah, I made like a 400 Wind Fury reshield itself Quillbore from scratch.
That's not okay.
Yeah, just the card was just not on my board, and I made a 400 version of it. And then if I roll another 2 cards, I can just make a 400 Hydra now. Absolutely insane, man. Like that cannot be a thing, right? Like it's really annoying when you're in a 1v1, or let's say there's 3 people left.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's so hopeless.
You're playing Nagas, for instance, right? And you're strong and you're buffing, but you're playing the Quillbore player, and you're like, well, if they roll those 2 cards, they're going to maybe not double the power on their board, but it's going to be a disgusting spike. And that's probably going to keep them alive. And then they could do it again, and then they're stronger than me, and then they can do it again, and then they're going to shit all over my board, right? So you feel like you're on the clock, because if they know what they're doing, which they usually do,
if they know what they're doing, they really only have to do it once.
Yeah, they did. You just got to roll, because like honestly, these days I tend to get 2 Necros and 1 Cookie, where my first Necro like sets it up, where I'm really just like concentrating this real fat stack of gems, and then like that's the one I'll Cookie. Right. So if I can get 2 Necrolites and a Cookie, for me that's better. Like I won't Cookie the first thing. I'll just like make this really big stack, and then that's the one I'll Cookie. We don't have to talk about like how we like maximum abuse.
You talk too much about that kind of stuff. Like leave it alone. Let them figure it out themselves,
Yeah, anyways, you can say what you wanted to say. It's just such a, you feel like you're on the clock. That's what I'm saying. Like when you're fighting the 1v1 or 3 last people, and one of them's Quillbore, you're like, ah, shit, here we go again, right?
Yeah. So I would say those are like the 2 biggest issues. Other than that, I'm not seeing like anything like jumps out to me in terms of like, this needs to. I mean, Togwaggle, right? I still think Togwaggle's as a hero is fundamentally weird. Should be nerfed. I would just up its cost once you use it. Like the first cost, 6-on-6 is kind of fine, but then like it should go back to 9, because it goes back to 8, and that just seems so abusable. Because like paying 8 for a board is like very good value on like almost every board. If you're gonna buy at least one thing on that board, like it's very good value. So it should go back to 9. It means that like it'd still be a very strong hero, I think, because like you go 6-on-6, and then you have to like sell 2 if you want to.
Well, 3-on-3.
Yeah, I said 6-on-6.
So what you're saying, or what I think you're saying, is that it's not okay that on the 7 gold turn you just sell 1 thing in hero power.
Hero power, yeah, that's not okay.
Yeah, that is very, very nasty. I agree. Having to sell 2 there to hero power,
that sounds a lot.
And then you're like, I kind of don't want to do it anymore.
It requires because I feel like right now it's kind of brain dead, where you can always press the button, and it's like kind of okay. Like you can always press the button. Like there's no drawback. Like you would think like that this hero power has a drawback, right? Like the way it's designed, there should be a drawback, and there's none. There's none. There's no drawback. Just use the button every turn and it's fine. There should be like, oh, you have to think about it a little bit.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I played Nomi on this, right? And like every time I have two allies in the tavern, like, yep.
dude, I had double Peggy, and I was like, I see why Shitty likes this. Yeah. I was like, I see why Shady likes this. I was like, oh, I just press the button and get like 14 in stats, like,
so good, man. Yeah.
and I get like 8 gold or something. It was like very stupid.
Just like a random Peggy appreciation moment. That card is so good. Like, I don't think it's broken, but usually whenever you see like they have a 50-50 amalgam, you're like, there's a Peggy on the board. It's like that's how it happens, right? Like you're fighting Gallywix and you're like, yep, that's an 80 health amalgam. How did that happen? So, but it doesn't feel like it's a broken card. But it's one of those things where if you go to tier 4 early, I feel like that's a must buy, right? Like when you certain cards, when you see them come by, you're just like, I always buy that, right? And like that's for me with Peggy. If I go early tier 4 and I'm planning on buying on that tier, I'm like, Peggy, that's it. You know, it's probably my number one guy.
These are the pirate players. You can hear there's a pirate player talking. Cause that's
Peggy
not how I feel.
I
don't give anything about Peggy. Peggy's whatever to me. Like I skip Peggy's all the time. It's like a whatever card. Yeah,
it's so
you can tell the pirate player is talking in this group. Like it's like, oh, Peggy's are great. And I'm just like, Peggy's. What is that card? Like, give me.
I just feel like there was a time where I wasn't she wasn't really on my radar as much. Where I was like, oh, you know, that's a must buy. But like since I've been doing that more, it just has a way of working out. Like it's so easy for Peggy to be worth it. Like sometimes within the turn where you buy it, but then most definitely the next turn or 2 turns after that, you're like, oh man, I'm so happy I picked up that Peggy. Or you're just like buying Reef Explorers, or you're buying a Sun Bacon Relaxer and then the gems, and you're just like, oh, my minion is huge right now. So, whatever. Anyway, just random interjection there. Like if you're not really playing a lot of Peggy, try it out. Peggy's great.
Stop this broadcast and tell you buy some Peggies.
This broadcast was brought to you by R. Like it's just some kind of like. Just imagine if the separate minion types would be running their ad campaigns. It's like buy Chroma Wings now. It's like
ooh,
fast tiering, guaranteed triples.
I do want to give them credit for something I didn't think I would give them credit for. Uther, the Uther 6-drop, actually a good card. Like not super broken. Like just opens up some lines, gives you some safety net and things. It is like kind of weird. Like you can like outplay Zap like super hard. Like you know, on any game you can outplay Zap. So like the people that have like Frog with the Uther Baron, it's like you know, and then like. And then like Nagas are in, so they have Divine Shield too. You're like, I can't defeat this. But still, regardless, like good card. Like when I saw it, I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm gonna like this card, per se. Like oh, this might be too good or too whatever. But like it just opens up stuff. You can like take I don't know, like a Trickster and like Trickster it up, or you can take a Divine Shield, make it 15/15. Like you target that dragon, Bronze Warden, and it's like, this is a good card. Like, here we go. So yeah, definitely appreciate the card. I've had some situations where I have like one in my hand and like one in my board, and like I like randomly discovered the third one. I'm like, no, I could have made another 50/50. Like that's maybe that's just a me thing, but like multiple times I've just like had golden Uther, and I'm just like, I wasted like 2 15 buffs. Like, this just something that happens to me all the time. Well, not all the time, but like
golden. I think about 2 golden Uthers or so.
I've had a decent amount because it like I play tier 6 a lot, and like there's nothing to do, and it's just like, oh, I just buy Uther. Okay, I'll target it. Yeah, so. And then like you triple something, and then like it's another Uther, and like you had the Uther on your board, and you're just like, oh. Whoops, I forgot. Like, yeah, here it is. But yeah, anyways, that's kind of it for me. You have any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
Well, just jumping on the Uther stuff, something that I've been doing a lot lately, which again, pirate player, I suppose, is I've been playing a lot of Hogger stuff where I kind of transition from Hogger into Eliza, where I don't find the Hogger stuff super early. So it's not like I've been building this like giant salty looter and I have Peggies and stuff on my board. Usually what happens is I get like an Eliza and a Skelly already, but then I pick up a Hogger because I like doing that, right? Because then, your next Skelly is cheaper. You could always roll into another Hogger. You can make the Hogger golden with Tony. You could roll into the pirate money.
You can see that I don't even buy that Hogger. that's the difference.
But it opens up such cool things.
But I don't like playing Hogger. That's the thing. So I'm like, I don't even want to give myself the option of playing this card.
Right. That's fair. But what I really like is that when you do get to, because you'd be surprised how often you end up infinite, where like you have that Tony and then the Tony.
I remember I played Nosy. That Nosy gave me golden Hogger, and I was just like, I don't want this.
Yeah.
I was like,
you did not tell the golden Hogger, right? If you did, don't tell me. I can't hear that.
Of course I sold it, like at the end. Yeah.
Oh, I sold the golden Hogger, chap.
It wasn't even that good. Like,
okay, whatever. Anyways, but one of my favorite things to do is when I'm playing in an Exodia comp. I've done this with like Buster shit as well, I think, at one point, where I'm like infinite and I'm just roll, and then I end just with a Golden Baron and Busters and whatever. But most of the time it's Pirate Exodia because you're in Pirates anyway. So I have this Golden Hogger, regular Hogger on my board, and I'm just like rolling. And what happens is you can buy every Uther you find. So the end result when I transition to Pirate Exodia is 15-15 Golden Baron, 15-15 Golden Khadgar, 15-15 Golden Khadgar, Golden Eliza, Golden Eliza, Scallywag. It's something you don't hit without being infinite. Like when you have a really really good pirate game, it's usually you have the Golden Baron and the Golden Khadgar, and it's like exceptional, right? That's really good. But 2 Golden Khadgars is so easy when you're infinite. You're just like, nobody's buying Khadgars, right? So they're so free. And then they're all 15-15s. Or sometimes you even be like, fuck it, I'm gonna Uther this Baron, and then I'm gonna Uther that Baron, and then they're tripled, and then you have a 45-45 Baron.
You're finding a lot of Uthers at that point, yeah.
Yeah, but you're infinite.
I guess, yeah. Like, so you are finding a lot of Uthers.
You're just APMing, right? It depends a bit on how fast you find the Baron, right? Because sometimes you're rolling like Baron, but sometimes it's like you have found 2 Uthers before you found the other Baron, so you can easily throw it on the other one. But anyways, just me, because we were talking about Uther. I agree. I think it's a great card. I love playing Uther. I don't hate playing against it. So I think that's a good mark. It's a good way to measure the card. I just want to point out that that's how I've been using it the past few days. I really like the ability to also play around Blaster, right? Make 15-15 Leroy's, 15-15 Manted Queens. There's so much. I guess I can throw this up if you're down for like a quick thing. Like the state of the end game tech with Leroy Manted, there is a little bit of division, I would suppose, where some people say, this is bad for the game. Like, I don't like this, that you build your stats and then in the late game you're switching to Leroy Manted. But I love the end game state of the game right now.
I'm not switching to Leroy Manted. I just kill you.
Yeah, you're not.
So I don't know this difference. I'm switching to Leroy Manted if I've had a bad game, and like, I guess I have to play Leroy's. But if I'm having a good game, I don't need to do this. So for me, it's like, it's insurance, I guess. Or like, to be fair, Leroy tech, Manted tech, like for some matchups, sure. But like, they have to beat me first, you know what I'm saying? Like I've told you, they gotta demand my respect. If they're not doing anything, then it doesn't matter.
But it's also good, I would say, if you're having a good time, let's say with Dark Gaze, you usually have a flex slot to still at least end on
Manted. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's a reasonable play. I guess my problem would be is if we don't have these cards. Like,
you need them, right?
You need them, man. Yeah. Like just think about the state of Quillbore right now. Even without cookie abuse, dynamic duo. How often does that shit go?
Yeah, I was watching a player, and they're against another streamer, and they just put a random Leroy in the front, and then like fought the Quillbore player. He had like a 450 duo.
Yeah.
And 100% dead if you they didn't buy that Leroy. 100% dead. And I was just like, Leroy's pretty good. Yeah, it's kind of winning that fight like this.
That's my point, right? Like we're at a stage where people can actually make 400 health, like let's say 200 health to make if
400
you have
health duos, no buddies. Like it's crazy.
it's more like you've had 2 and you tripled, right? And that makes sense.
No, that was a single duo like this.
That was a non-golden duo.
Yeah, non-golden.
Wow, well, yeah. I mean, if you have enough dark gaze,
yeah,
whatever.
Like you just double dark gaze. Like
so yeah, you really, really need to have poison, and I would say both of them. I don't think it's just the.
It could have been golden. To be fair, I wasn't really paying that much.
Either way, it does. Like 400 to me sounds like he had 200s and
it does sound like, I agree. It does sound like he tripled it.
That's otherwise it's like with Hogger, right? If you have Dargaze Hogger, then
he did have Hogger.
All right, yeah. If you have Hogger, then it doesn't have to be golden. Probably was, but doesn't have to be.
Yeah. Double Dargaze Hogger. Let's go.
Sneak that in there, right? To just say like, the podcast supports Manted Leroy. we like this. Right?
Hey, don't put my name on. Let me see if I do. You
don't need it. Right?
I am indifferent. Okay? So I guess we're somewhat supporting, because if you're supporting and I'm indifferent, then I guess we're leaning support. So I'll give it to you.
We're between indifferent and in favor, so slightly in favor, cautiously in favor of the cards.
That's with me. Yeah, I'm indifferent in like 90% of things, and it's like delete Manted, or not Manted, but like delete mackerel. I'm like overwhelmingly support the delete Manted mackerel objective. But other than that, it's like I'm indifferent. Anyways, I think that's it, right, for us.
That's it for today.
This is a long one. I lied to everyone, and I said it was going to be long.
Yeah, well, I think it's just a cool. I think it's a cool meta, and we both played quite a bit, and there was a qualifying time and all that. So yeah, still, but it's every time you tell me like, oh, it's going to be a short one, Shady. I'm like, yeah, we'll see about that.
Yeah, I know. Maybe I shouldn't fake our viewers out like, it's going to be short, guys. No, it's not.
Well, here's the thing, though. For any podcast listeners, they see how long the thing is.
I know.
They know what's coming, right?
Yeah. There's like a 2.5 hour one who's like, hey guys, this one's gonna be pretty short. We just have a couple things to talk about. They're looking like, this is 2.5.
Little meta talk. 45 minutes in and be like, no, Collins, it was definitely this. What are you talking about? So like you've gone on like a half-hour tangent to be like, oh, that's a good tangent.
Fair enough. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. HSBG Podcast at Gmail. You can find us on Twitter and Twitch. And you have the Lobby Legends qualifier tomorrow, so you can watch that if you like. But other than that, we will see you guys later. Take care of everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your day, evening, or night.
Have a good one, everyone.